Imagine playing professional high-stakes soccer in like a 105-degree heat.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, thank you.
Right. The turf is literally radiating heat, the air is thick, and the physical toll on your body is just monumental.
I can't even imagine just walking around in that heat is brutal enough.
Exactly. Now, I want you to imagine doing that while just a few miles away, the rest of your city is hosting these international luxury travelers.
The ones sipping bespoke, $200 cocktails.
Yes, at an exclusive experiential travel summit. Today, we are looking at the ultimate city of extremes.
A place where the absolute grit of local survival sits right next door to the pinnacle of global luxury.
Welcome to episode 16 of the Unitor Talks podcast. We are so thrilled to have you sitting right here at the table with us today.
We really are, and our deep dive today is a massive, immersive examination of a truly fascinating source document.
It really is. We're looking at the comprehensive cultural, athletic, and artistic calendar detailing the events of Marrakech and its surrounding regions for 2026 and 2027.
And what makes this document so compelling isn't just the sheer volume of events.
Right, because there are a ton of them.
Exactly, but it's the tension underneath them. Like, how does a city survive its own popularity?
That is the big question.
It is. How does it curate an experience for millions of global tourists without completely hollowing out its own soul?
I mean, that's the central mystery of the modern mega destination, right?
Yeah.
And to understand how Marrakech navigates this, we have to look at the overarching theme, printed right on the very first page of this calendar.
2 words.
2 words. Bahja spirit. Now, I have to be honest, my immediate reaction when I read this was to just dismiss it as a marketing slogan.
Oh, sure, like a tourism board tagline.
Exactly. You see this all the time, cities trying to, brand happiness. But the text frames it as much more than that.
Yeah, and if you don't grasp the Bahja, you are going to misunderstand every single event on this calendar.
So what is it really?
Well, the literal translation is the joy of living, but framing it simply as joy is completely inadequate.
It's deeper than that.
Much deeper. Bahja is actually a highly sophisticated cultural armor. It is a specific, localized resilience.
Armor is a fascinating way to put it.
Think about the history of Marrakech. I mean, it's a desert oasis, right? It's a historic crossroads of intense trade, political upheaval, and, as we mentioned, extreme climates.
Right.
So the Bahja spirit is this psychological mechanism. It's about finding light, employing razor-sharp street banter, and maintaining deep communal connection as a way of surviving those extremes.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it is quite literally the pulse of the city.
So it's not just a smile for the tourists. It's a survival mechanism.
Exactly.
That changes the lens completely. Well, our roadmap for you today on this deep dive is pretty epic.
We have a lot of ground to cover.
We do. We are going to unpack the massive summer musical and cultural festivals, dive headfirst into the adrenaline-pumping sports and adventure events, and, crucially, we'll be putting a massive spotlight on Le Medina photo and the breathtaking art exhibitions taking over this city this summer.
It's going to be a fascinating journey.
We're going to see how all of this feeds into that Bahja spirit. So, okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the visual soul of the city.
Good place to start. Because before you hear a city, you see it.
Very true.
And the anchor of this visual feast is the 3rd edition of Le Medina photo, which runs from April 29th to May 31st, 2026.
Now, when I first read the outline for this, I pictured, a standard gallery opening.
A white room, some wine, a quiet crowd.
Exactly. A few framed prints on a wall. But this is a massive citywide takeover. I mean, it consumes the urban landscape.
It really does. And to understand why it's so massive, we have to look at the mechanics of urban memory.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Well, the document outlines that this festival is building on a specific legacy. Between 2000 and 2004, there was an initiative called the Meydene photo.
Okay, so it has roots.
Right. It was initiated by Sakina Rarib, who was the curator of the Museum of Marrakech at the time.
Wait, so it existed back then and then it just, vanished for 20 years?
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. It went dormant. The infrastructure for it just faded away. But it was relaunched in 2024.
What sparked the relaunch?
The text specifically credits this relaunch to a united front. It was a coalition of cultural actors and artistic spaces.
So it wasn't just like one billionaire writing a check.
No, not at all. It wasn't one wealthy patron. It was a collective realization that Marrakech had lost the platform where it could actually look at itself.
Oh, that's powerful.
And when a city loses a major artistic platform like that, it loses its ability to self-reflect.
But here's my issue with that. The calendar states that the thematic core for 2026 is exploring the relationship between generations.
Right, the transmission of memories through photography, archives, and digital images.
Yeah, which sounds incredibly intimate. But then you look at the venues.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
Right, I mean, sure, you have grassroots spaces like LE18 in the Medina or the Maison Denis Masson, but you also have it installed in the Sofitel and the Es Sadi Marrakech Resort.
The luxury hotels.
Exactly. I have to push back here. Isn't putting this deeply intimate, intergenerational local art inside a massive luxury hotel just, well, pandering to wealthy tourists?
It's a fair point.
How is that a city looking at itself? Doesn't that just commodify the memory?
That is exactly the friction point, and it's a completely valid critique. However, you have to look at the sociology of space in Marrakech.
Okay, how so?
The luxury hotels aren't just bubbles for foreigners. I mean, they are massive economic engines that dominate the physical geography of certain neighborhoods.
Right, they take up a lot of real estate.
They do. So by forcing the art into the Sofitel, the curators are essentially hijacking the tourist space.
Hijacking the space. Wait, explain that.
Think about it. If you only put the art in a grassroots gallery in the Medina, you are just speaking into an echo chamber.
Because the local artists already know that narrative.
Exactly. They already get it. But by placing an exhibition about local intergenerational memory right into the lobby of a luxury resort, you disrupt things.
You break the illusion.
Yes. You disrupt the highly curated, sterilized fantasy that the hotel usually sells. You confront the visitor with the actual, complex, and sometimes messy reality of the city.
Well, that is actually brilliant.
And furthermore, it democratizes access in a reverse way.
How does that work?
The funding and visibility generated by placing art in these high-end spaces actually subsidize the free public installations in places like Les Étoiles de Jama et Fna.
I see. So it's a symbiotic relationship, even if it feels a bit contradictory on the surface.
Completely.
You mentioned the digital archives part of the theme earlier. That really fascinates me.
It's a huge part of modern memory.
It is. For you listening right now, think about how you store your family photos. I mean, they used to be in physical albums, right?
Heavy, dusty albums in the attic.
Yeah. And now they are just on a cloud server somewhere. The photographers in this festival are wrestling with how a city transitions its physical memory, like the actual stones of the Medina, into a digital format without losing the soul of the place.
Precisely. How does a grandfather explain his Marrakech to a granddaughter who experiences the city primarily through a smartphone screen?
That is such a profound tension.
It is, and that's exactly what this festival explores.
And speaking of exploring unexpected angles, there's another summer exhibition at the Musée Yves Saint Laurent that completely caught me off guard.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
Right. When you hear Yves Saint Laurent, you think of haute couture. You think of the Mondrian dress.
This sheer intensity of global fashion week.
Exactly. You do not think about, well, dogs.
Yves Saint Laurent, Aisha. Yves Saint Laurent and his dogs.
Yes.
It is such a brilliant exhibition because it completely strips away the mythology.
So explain the mechanics of this to me. How does a dog exhibition fit into a high-fashion museum? I mean, it sounds almost out of place.
Well, because fashion at its core is driven by the internal psychology of the designer.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Yves Saint Laurent was famously a man of immense internal pressure and anxiety. The exhibition dives into his archives and personal objects to explore the deeply intimate emotional place his dogs held in his life.
Specifically his French bulldogs, right?
Yes, his French bulldogs, and they were all named Moujik.
Wait. He named all of his dogs the exact same thing?
He did. He had a whole succession of French bulldogs, and
Yeah.
every single one was named Moujik. Moujik the first, Moujik the second, and so on.
That is so eccentric. I love it.
It is, but the exhibition explores the mechanism of his creativity. These dogs weren't just pets. They were grounding mechanisms for him.
Because his world was so chaotic.
Exactly. In a world of incredibly high stakes, ruthless fashion critique, the dog is the only entity in his studio that doesn't care about the hemline of a dress.
They just want a treat.
Exactly.
For those of you listening right now, just imagine how your own pets influence your daily routine. Maybe you have a cat that sits on your keyboard when you are trying to type a stressful email.
Forcing you to stop and take a breath.
Right. Or a dog that demands a walk, physically pulling you out of your home office and into the real world.
We all need that.
We do. And that is exactly what this exhibition is highlighting. It brings a completely untouchable fashion god down to earth, showing how the quiet company of an animal was necessary to fuel his massive creative output.
And before we close the chapter on the visual arts, we really need to acknowledge that this intentional focus on the lens continues later in the year.
Yes, the calendar points to the 6th edition of the Rencontre de la Photographie de Marrakech.
The RPM.
Right, running from October 28th to the 31st. And the source notes this is a huge deal because 2026 is the bicentennial of the invention of photography.
1826 to 2026. 200 years.
That's a massive milestone.
Exactly. And by hosting a major summit on this 200-year milestone, right on the heels of the massive summer Mai de la Photo, Marrakech is laying an aggressive, intentional claim to global visual culture.
They're planting a flag.
They are. They are stating that they are not just a city to be photographed, they are a center for the discourse about photography.
Okay, so if the spring and early summer are about how Marrakech sees itself, as the heat rises, the calendar completely shifts gears.
The whole sensory experience changes.
It does. The city becomes this incredible tapestry of sound. I want to transition into the major musical and cultural festivals of the summer. Let's look at May.
May is packed.
It is, because there are two events scheduled right next to each other that show an incredible, almost whiplash-inducing breadth of culture.
Which ones?
On May 14th, at the Théâtre Meydene, there's a tribute called Debout, honoring Jacques Brel.
Ah, the legendary Belgian singer-songwriter.
Right, and it's specifically celebrating 70 years since Brel's very first steps in Morocco. Now, I have to be honest, my initial reaction was pure confusion.
Really? Why?
Well, why is Marrakech hosting a massive tribute to a mid-century Belgian singer? Doesn't that just feel like clinging to an old European Francophone past?
It's a fair question to ask, but you have to understand the mechanics of Francophone culture in North Africa.
Okay, break that down for us.
It is not just some colonial hangover. It is an active, evolving, shared linguistic and emotional landscape.
So it's still very much alive.
Very much so. Brel's music, with its intense theatricality, the lyricism about heartbreak, poverty, and human resilience, it resonated deeply with Moroccan audiences 70 years ago, and it still does today.
Because the themes are universal.
Exactly. It highlights an enduring cultural bridge. The performance of Brel in Marrakech today isn't about looking backward at all. It's about claiming that music as part of their own modern cosmopolitan identity.
I get that.
Yeah.
I really do. And the contrast is what really makes it fascinating because literally 48 hours later on May 16th, in the exact same venue, Théâtre Meydene, you have an event called Overflow 30 on the Grass.
Right, the choir.
Yes. This is a local parish choir celebrating 30 years with these deeply spiritual and emotional chants.
That juxtaposition is just the perfect distillation of Marrakech.
It really is.
I mean, you have Jacques Brel, who represents the ultimate secular, cynical, whiskey-soaked poetry of the 20th century. And then, literally 2 days later on the same stage, you have a local choir performing deeply sacred spiritual chants.
Amazing.
It proves that the city can hold the theatrical secular and the deeply sacred in the exact same physical space without any friction whatsoever.
And that intellectual diversity leads right into the second edition of the Festival du Cinéma et de l'Histoire de Marrakech, which runs from May 20th to the 24th.
Yes, the Cinema and History Festival.
And the theme for 2026 is Cinéma et Medina Historique. Cinema and the historical Medina.
We see a really clear through line here. Just like the photography festival explored how images capture the city, this film festival explores how the moving image narrates heritage.
But what does that actually mean in practice? Like, how does a camera change a Medina?
Well, think about the physical mechanics of a Medina. It is a labyrinth.
Oh, absolutely.
It is intentionally designed to be disorienting to outsiders. It was built defensively over centuries. You have narrow alleys, dead ends, hidden courtyards.
It's very intimate and closed off.
Right, so when a filmmaker brings a camera into that space, they have to choose a perspective.
They have to frame it.
Exactly. Are they shooting it to look exotic and dangerous, like a chase scene in a spy movie?
We've all seen those movies.
Right. Or are they shooting it from the inside out, showing the quiet, actual domestic life behind those heavy wooden doors?
Oh, I see.
The festival is asking filmmakers to critically examine how their lenses have historically mythologized and sometimes completely misrepresented these ancient urban spaces.
It's demanding accountability from the artists.
I love that.
It's very necessary dialogue.
It is. Now, from deep historical film analysis, we have to look at how this city laughs.
Yes, the comedy scene.
Because the comedy explosion this summer is significant. May 30th brings the humorous Bizal with a highly rhythmic, interactive show.
He's incredibly energetic.
He is. But here is where the calendar reveals a massive shift in the cultural tectonic plates of the city. June 4th to the 6th at the Palais de Congrès, the first edition of the Marrakech Comedy Festival. This cannot be overstated. This is a monumental pivot for the city's cultural economy.
Let's give our listeners the context for why this is such a big deal. For over a decade, the Marrakech du Rire, founded by Jamel Debbouze, was the undisputed heavyweight champion of francophone comedy outside of Europe.
It was legendary.
It was, but it recently ended. It left this massive vacuum.
And nature, especially in the entertainment business, absolutely abhors a vacuum.
That's true.
When a festival that size disappears, you lose millions of dollars in hospitality revenue, production jobs, and international media impressions.
It's an economic blow.
A huge one. So the launch of this new Marrakech Comedy Festival is a direct, highly organized attempt to reclaim that infrastructure.
And they aren't starting small either. The source details that they are launching with both francophone and arabophone galas.
Which is mechanistically brilliant.
Why is that?
Because the previous era of comedy in the city was heavily skewed toward the francophone European market. By intentionally designing equal space for arabophone comedy, they are tapping into the massive, incredibly lucrative Middle Eastern and North African demographic.
That makes total business sense.
It does. And the rhythm of arabophone comedy is completely different. It often relies heavily on rapid-fire wordplay, regional dialects, and intense audience interaction.
So it's a totally different vibe.
Yeah. They are capturing two entirely different cultural rhythms in one festival.
And you know what the kicker is? The performances are being broadcast globally on Disney Plus View.
This is the soft power aspect we talk about.
Yeah.
Marrakech is taking its Bahja spirit, that specific joy and resilience we talked about at the very beginning, packaging it through world-class production values, and piping it directly into millions of living rooms across the globe via a massive streaming algorithm.
It is a brilliant play for global cultural relevance. And as the comedy fades and we move into the deep, blazing heat of July, there is a musical event on July 26th that caught my attention. Rai Old School of Exami Bay at Meydene.
Oh, Rai music is the perfect soundtrack for the deep summer.
But what exactly is Rai, for those listening who might not know? The calendar calls it an immersion into the Golden Age. But let's break down the mechanics of the sound.
Well, Rai is fascinating because its very acoustic structure is a rebellion.
A rebellion.
Yes. It originated in Algeria, but was heavily adopted and evolved in Morocco, particularly in the eastern border regions. Traditionally, you had Bedouin desert music, right?
Flutes and hand drums?
Exactly. Flutes, hand drums, poetry about rural life. But in the 1970s and 80s, young musicians started taking those traditional vocal melodies and forcefully colliding them with synthesizers, electric guitars, and Western bass lines.
Oh, wow. So it was a literal generational clash translated into audio.
Exactly. The elders often viewed it as vulgar because the lyrics shifted from traditional poetry to blunt commentary on youth culture, romance, alcohol, and social frustration.
They were singing about real life.
Right. The heavy bass lines and synthetic beats made it club music, but the vocals remain deeply North African.
And the fact that this event is billed as old school is telling. We are seeing this massive trend of nostalgia globally right now.
People want the classics.
They do. Audiences don't just want new music. They want to go back to the foundational sounds that define their youth. Sammy Bay singing the classics in 2026 taps into a collective emotional yearning.
It really does.
So we've covered the visual arts, the intricate mechanics of film, comedy, and Ray music.
Right.
But there is a completely different rhythm that takes over this city in the summer.
And it involves a lot more sweat.
It does. We need to talk about the sports and adventure calendar. And to do that, we have to start with the global juggernaut sitting right in the middle of June.
June 11th to July 19th.
Yes, the 2026 FIFA World Cup.
Now, to be clear, based on the facts in the calendar, the 2026 World Cup matches are being hosted in North America.
Right. The physical games are an ocean away. So why is it highlighted as a major anchor in the Marrakech calendar?
Because of the economics and sociology of a secondary host city, Marrakech is already a global tourist mecca, right?
Definitely.
It has the hospitality infrastructure to absorb tens of thousands of people. So during a massive global event like the World Cup, a city like Marrakech essentially transforms into a proxy stadium.
How does that work mechanically, though? Like, on the ground?
Well, the cafes in the Medina, the massive screens erected in public squares, the sports bars and the luxury hotels, they all synchronize to the broadcast schedule.
Everything revolves around the matches.
Everything. You have tourists from 50 different nations whose home countries might be playing each other, sitting shoulder to shoulder with deeply passionate Moroccan fans.
That sounds incredible.
The entire service industry pivots to accommodate the match times. It creates an atmosphere of intense, localized emotion based entirely on a satellite feed.
Wow.
It's a masterclass in how a city can monetize and culturally absorb an event it isn't even physically hosting.
That makes total sense. But, while the tourists are watching screens, there is an intense, agonizing physical reality happening right on the ground.
The local league.
Yes. The calendar details the schedule for the local football club, KAC Marrakech, in the Moroccan Championship.
It is a brutal schedule.
That is an understatement. I want you to listen to the cadence of these matches. May 11th, May 16th, May 23rd.
It just keeps going.
It does. May 30th against the Giants, Raja Casablanca. June 6th, June 13th, June 20th, June 27th, July 4th, July 11th.
Wow.
That is 10 professional matches in the span of 2 months.
Right through the absolute peak of the climbing Moroccan summer heat.
Exactly. I mean, for you listening, think about how exhausted you get just running errands on a humid July afternoon.
Getting in and out of a hot car is exhausting enough.
Right. Now imagine playing 90 minutes of high-stakes professional football in 100-degree heat. I have to ask, why do they structure the league this way? It seems physically dangerous.
It pushes the absolute limits of human endurance, yes. But it also highlights the reality of domestic sports leagues compared to international tournaments.
Oh, so
The schedule is often dictated by complex broadcasting rights, regional travel logistics, and just the sheer density of the league. But from a cultural perspective, this local schedule is the true, unfiltered heartbeat of the city.
contrast that with the luxury experiential travel we talked about earlier.
Precisely. A bespoke travel summit is curated for a foreign audience, but a KAC Marrakech match against Raja Casablanca on May 30th.
That's for the locals.
That is where you find the local mechanic, the shop owner, the student, all united in the stands.
The real city.
Yes. The mechanics of local fandom, the ultras coordinating massive choreographed visual displays called tifos, the relentless chanting it requires an endurance from the fans that mirrors the athletes on the pitch.
It is raw, uncurated Bahja spirit. And that theme of extreme endurance leads to a fascinating cluster of events as we look past the summer. The calendar reveals a massive focus on active lifestyle and adventure, specifically tailored to women.
Yes, the autumn treks.
Right. On October 4th, there is La Quechua, a race tied to Pink October for breast cancer awareness.
A great cause.
Absolutely. Then from October 19th to the 24th, out in the coastal and desert landscapes of Essaouira, you have the Check de Gazelle by Melanie.
Which is an intense event.
It is. The source explicitly describes this as a 100% female sporting and solidarity event, combining adventure, pushing one's limits, and social commitment.
Right.
And following that, November 8th to the 13th, the Trekkin' Gazelles, which is a female walking marathon focused on environmental awareness.
Another massive physical undertaking.
So why is this landscape so perfectly suited for these specific, female-driven journeys of extreme self-discovery?
To answer that, we really have to look at the psychology of the desert environment.
Okay, let's look at it.
An urban environment, whether it's Marrakech or London or New York, is inherently noisy. It demands constant navigation of societal expectations, digital distractions, and complex social roles.
We're all constantly plugged in.
Exactly. And for women, who often carry a disproportionate amount of that societal management, the urban space can be psychologically exhausting.
So the desert acts as an escape.
More than an escape, actually. It acts as a psychological stripping mechanism.
A stripping mechanism.
Yeah. When you step into the arid plains or the dunes, the landscape removes all context. The desert does not care about your job title, your social media feed, or your societal obligations.
It doesn't care who you are.
Not at all. It only demands one thing: physical resilience. It demands that you put one foot in front of the other.
Mechanics of survival.
Exactly. And the act of conquering that deeply unforgiving physical environment translates directly into internal psychological empowerment.
That makes a lot of sense.
By designing these treks exclusively for women, the organizers are creating a space where physical endurance becomes a catalyst for rewriting personal narratives.
Oh, wow.
Furthermore, tying this extreme physical exertion to social causes like breast cancer awareness or environmental conservation creates a holistic loop.
How does the loop work?
Well, the individual gains strength from the desert and then immediately directs that strength back into the community.
It's an incredibly powerful concept. You mentioned the environmental conservation aspect, and that is a perfect bridge into the autumn section of this calendar.
The city really transforms in the autumn.
It does, because as the heat finally breaks, the city experiences a massive convergence. It shifts from a space of festivals and endurance sports into a high-level global hub for business, heritage, and dialogue.
It becomes the boardroom of the experiential economy.
I love that phrase. Let's unpack that. September 7th to the 10th, the Palais de Congrès hosts pure life experiences.
A huge industry event.
Right. The calendar notes this is for the global community of experiential travel. What exactly is experiential travel, mechanically speaking?
Experiential travel is basically a rejection of the traditional luxury vacation.
Like the all-inclusive resort.
Exactly. Traditional luxury was about passive comfort lying on a beach at a five-star resort, completely insulated from the host country.
You could be anywhere in the world.
Exactly. You wouldn't even know. But experiential luxury is about active, hyper-authentic, sensory immersion.
So getting your hands dirty.
Yeah. It's the difference between drinking a generic cocktail by a pool versus paying a premium to spend 3 days trekking with indigenous guides and learning to cook regional dishes over an open fire.
So why does the global industry gather in Marrakech to discuss this? Why not, I don't know, Geneva or Dubai?
Because Marrakech is the product. It is the ultimate case study in experiential travel.
Oh, I see.
It offers the intense, authentic chaos of the Medina right alongside the absolute, silent, hyper-curated luxury of hidden ryads.
The duality again.
Yes. The buyers and suppliers, the people designing $50,000 safaris or private expeditions, they come to Marrakech to learn the mechanics of how to sell authenticity without destroying it.
Which is an incredible tightrope walk. And we see that same focus on harnessing ancient traditions for modern markets with the Africa Wellness Congress on October 12th and 13th.
This summit is vital. The wellness industry globally is shifting in a major way right now.
How so?
For decades, wellness was dominated by Western clinical aesthetics or East Asian traditions. But now, the world is looking to Africa.
What kind of practices are we talking about here?
We're talking about the commodification and elevation of indigenous practices. The traditional hammam culture, the meticulous processing of argan oil, local herbal remedies.
Ancient stuff.
Right. The Congress is where these ancient local practices are codified, packaged, and transformed into highly sought-after global wellness trends. Marrakech is positioning itself as the intellectual capital of African wellness.
But here is where we hit the absolute friction point of this entire calendar. With all this global business, this hyper-modernization, and this commodification of culture, you risk destroying the very thing you are selling.
That is the ultimate danger.
And that brings us to the World Congress of the OVPM, the Organization of World Heritage Cities, from October 26th to the 29th.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is arguably the most consequential event of the year for the actual residents of the city.
Really? Explain why an urban planning congress matters so much more than, say, a huge music festival.
Well, think back to the very beginning of our conversation on this deep dive. We talked about Le Meydene photo trying to preserve the generational memory of the city, right?
Yes, the photos and archives.
And we talked about filmmakers struggling to capture the truth of the Medina.
Right.
The OVPM Congress is where the actual policies are written that decide if those physical spaces will even exist in 20 years.
Wow. I see the tension. The calendar also mentions Marrakech hosting GTEx Africa, which is a massive AI and tech summit.
Right, highly futuristic.
How do you build the infrastructure for a global tech hub, lay high-speed fiber optics, and construct luxury mega-resorts without literally bulldozing an 11th century Medina?
That is the central paradox. The mechanics of modern urban survival require aggressive development, but the mechanics of heritage require aggressive preservation.
They are completely at odds.
They are. The planners at this Congress have to design invisible infrastructure. Like, how do you reinforce ancient clay walls to withstand the vibrations of modern traffic?
I hadn't even thought of that.
Or how do you implement sustainable waste management in a labyrinth of alleys that modern garbage trucks physically can't fit down?
It's a logistical nightmare.
It is. The artists capture the soul of the city, but the people at this Congress are the ones doing the architectural surgery to keep the body alive.
It is a high-wire act with no safety net. And to balance out that intense policy work, the autumn calendar just unleashes a relentless wave of cultural anchors.
The city doesn't sleep.
It really doesn't. I'm going to run through these quickly, but I want you to notice the incredible variety. In October, you have the International Folklore Festival, transforming the streets into a stage for global traditional dance.
Beautiful.
From October 8th to the 11th out in Essaouira, you have the festival Esther and Salma,
Which uses multidisciplinary art to tackle incredibly complex themes of identity, exile, and memory.
Wow.
Again, we see art doing the heavy lifting of societal discourse.
Then, November 14th to the 16th brings the Coffee and Tea Festival. Gastronomy, tastings, masterclasses, exploring the deep ritualistic mechanics of how North Africa consumes caffeine.
That sounds delicious.
It does. And immediately following that, from November 20th to the 28th, the absolute heavyweight of the year, the 23rd International Film Festival of Marrakech.
It is the cultural crown jewel.
For sure.
You have the red carpets, the global cinema stars, but more importantly, the massive public screenings in Juma El Fana Square, where thousands of locals watch international cinema under the open sky.
And then, as if the city needs to collectively exhale after all that noise, December brings the 15th edition of Sama Marrakech.
The perfect counter-programming.
It really is.
This is an immersion into Sufi music, mystical chants, and the ancient rituals of Dhikr. It is a return to absolute, localized spiritual stillness.
Throw in La Nuit des Galeries, where contemporary art spaces open their doors late into the night for an immersive urban crawl. And you have a portrait of a city that simply refuses to stop generating culture.
It's an engine that just keeps running.
Which brings us, incredibly, to the final page of our calendar document. We are stepping out of 2026 and into 2027. The eternal cycle of the Bahja continues.
It's a fascinating glimpse into how they curate the future.
We start with Valentine's Day 2027. The document specifically calls out how the city organizes experiences: gastronomic, cultural, high-end hospitality, all tailored for couples.
This is a fascinating look at the mechanics of microtourism.
What do you mean by microtourism?
Well, they aren't just letting February happen organically. They are actively programming the city's lighting, restaurant menus, and hotel packages to capture the highly lucrative romantic tourism demographic.
Oh, I see.
They know their architecture lends itself to romance, and they monetize it with incredible precision.
But right after the commercialized romance of February-March 2027 delivers something so deeply authentic, you can almost smell it through the pages of the calendar.
I know what you're going to say.
Lazaria Marrakech, the 15th edition of the Musim of the Orange Blossom.
This is the purest definition of intangible heritage.
Let's define that term for our listeners. What makes it intangible?
Well, a building or a painting is tangible heritage. You can touch it, put a fence around it, and protect it physically.
Right.
Intangible heritage is a practice, a skill, or a sensory experience that only exists in the act of doing it.
Like a tradition.
Exactly. Lazaria is exactly that. It is the communal, generational practice of women distilling orange water from the blossoms in the courtyards of the city.
The text describes it as a vivid sensory event. Just imagine walking through the city and the entire urban landscape smells of sweet orange blossoms. It is a sensory anchor.
And that is the magic of Marrakech.
It really is.
No matter how many high-speed trains are built, no matter how many AI summits or Disney Plus comedy specials are filmed, the exact chemical scent of the orange blossom being distilled by hand in a clay pot in March remains a constant.
And then, providing one final whiplash of duality, also in March 2027, you have Marrakech Fashion Week.
Right back to the global stage.
Bringing cutting-edge international and national designers, buyers, and press to the city. From ancient floral distillation in a quiet courtyard to international couture runways with pulsing electronic music in the span of a few weeks.
It's just wild.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at over a year of programming on this deep dive. We've dissected massive photography installations in luxury hotels, the emotional support dogs of legendary designers, the structural shift of the comedy industry.
Brutal summer football schedules.
Right. Empowering desert treks, global experiential travel summits, the tension of urban planning, and the scent of orange blossoms.
It means that the true identity of Marrakech is its duality.
Its ability to hold both things at once.
Exactly. What this calendar proves is that this is a city that absolutely refuses to be categorized or pigeonholed.
It won't be put in a box.
Not at all. It honors an ancient Sufi chant with the exact same level of institutional respect and precise organization that it gives to hosting a massive global tech summit.
That is so rare.
It doesn't view its past and its future as enemies. It views them as parallel tracks running at top speed. It is the ancient crossroads of the caravan routes, completely reimagined as a hypermodern node in the global experiential economy.
It's not a city stuck in the past, and it's not a city erasing its past. It's doing both all at once.
Perfectly said.
Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. As you look at a city that curates its future, so meticulously balancing these massive global mega events with the deeply intimate preservation of its own photo albums and neighborhood choirs, how much of its magic is carefully produced by experts in boardrooms, and how much is just the unstoppable, organic, chaotic Bahja spirit bubbling up from the pavement?
It's the ultimate question.
Does hyper-organization eventually kill the soul of a city? Or is that organization the exact thing that gives the soul a global stage to survive on? Think about that.
Something to definitely ponder.
Thank you so much for joining us for this massive journey today. We want to explicitly thank you, the listeners, for tuning in to episode 16 of the Unitor Talks podcast.
We really appreciate.
We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending it deep diving with us. If you appreciated this podcast and the deep dive we took today, please take a second to leave us 5 stars.
It makes a massive difference for the show.
It really does. And a quick reminder that this podcast is available wherever you prefer to listen. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, and Deezer. Keep exploring, keep questioning the world around you, and we will see you on the next deep dive.